Michigan dominates in its home opener against Colorado State. Absolutely, absolutely no surprises there. Today we're going to be talking about this game, Michigan versus Colorado State, and doing some analysis and reaction to this game. It was a very one-sided game for the Michigan Wolverines. The game was effectively over after DJ Turner scooped and scored a fumble off of a sack early in the third quarter and returned it for a touchdown to make the score 30-0. The game was arguably over much earlier, but when you are beating a team by 30 points in the third quarter, that's when it's effectively safe to say that the game has ended. Cade McNamara started this game. McCarthy is starting in the night game against Hawaii, in which I have no clue why that's a night game, but here we are. The landscape of college football is changing. I have no clue what to expect anymore. But let's talk about this game. I'm going to run through all the scores just really quickly, give some of my thoughts, and then we'll get right into it and talk about analysis and then the ramifications of this game. So Michigan scored 51 points, Colorado State scored 7. I attended this game in person, as I plan on attending most Michigan home games. This was my first ever Michigan home game. It was an amazing time, great environment. Most of the students did leave at halftime, which I found to be a little disappointing myself as a Michigan fan. I left late in the third quarter, so I really can't criticize too harshly, but still, it was a great atmosphere. It didn't get too loud, but again, it's against Colorado State. There's not a lot of hype around the matchup. There were moments where it did get loud. I just loved the chants, everything about it. I love Michigan football. What can I say? I'm a Michigan fan. So I enjoyed my time there, and I enjoyed walking to the stadium from my car and walking back to my car from the stadium. It was a fun game to be at. Michigan dominated 51-7 over Colorado State. Colorado State's lone score came in the fourth quarter on a 34-yard pass to Torrey Horton. Again, big playmaker. I told you to watch out for him, and he had 6 receptions for 69 yards and a touchdown, and they were targeting him pretty often, and he nearly torched Will Johnson for like a 40-yard reception. It was called incomplete. I did not see a replay of that play myself, but he gained up on Will Johnson and darn near beat him. So Torrey Horton, very talented wide receiver for the Colorado State Rams. Clay Millen had a pretty solid game, considering that his offensive line was never going to match up well against Michigan's D-line. Colorado State is what it is. They're a Mountain West football team. They're a mediocre at best to terrible at worst football team. Michigan is a good, above average at minimum, near elite to elite at best football team. So a huge mismatch there. Michigan scores. It started off with a Roman Wilson 61-yard reception from Cade McNamara. Then there were 2 Jake Moody field goals, then a Blake Corum 7-yard run, and then another Jake Moody field goal to close out the second quarter. We're going to talk about this more, but Michigan's offense did sputter in the red zone enough times to where it was a concern for me. In the third quarter, there were 2 touchdowns, a DJ Turner 45-yard fumble return, and a JJ McCarthy 20-yard run. In the fourth quarter, Donovan Edwards punched it in on a 1-yard run to make it 44-0. Then Colorado State scored their touchdown, and then Alex Orji had a 4-yard run with 1:43 left in the game. And that's where the game ended. 51-7, Michigan. So the analysis. Michigan controlled the whole game, start to finish. Michigan was in control. Colorado State is a limited opponent compared to Michigan. Michigan knew this. They did what needed to be done, and they scored over 50 points and limited Colorado State to 7. And that one was a garbage time touchdown. The Wolverines are a team that likes to run the football, likes to chew clock. They like to get yards, but even more so than that, they like to get time of possession. Michigan was doing well in the time of possession category early on in the game, but as As the game closed, of course, it became pretty even. Michigan had 30 minutes and 30 seconds of TOP, Colorado State with 29 minutes and 30 seconds of TOP. Michigan had 24 first downs to Colorado State's 14. Michigan had no turnovers, but they forced 2 from Colorado State. And they had 440 total yards to Colorado State's 219. Most of Colorado State's were gained again, just like their TOP, in the second half when they were effectively neutered by Michigan's defense and offense by then. Speaking of the offense, the Wolverines did sputter in the end zone, enough to where I think it is cause for concern. They were 3 of 10 on third down. 3 of 10 against not the Iowa Hawkeyes, not against the Michigan State Spartans, not against Penn State, not against Ohio State, not against any Big Ten team. Against Colorado State, they were 3 out of 10. Now, this is game 1. You have some jitters. Cade McNamara making some poor decisions, but more so than that, there were a lot of drops from wide receivers. I thought Cade actually played a pretty good game. 9 of 18, 136 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, statistically, that doesn't look good, but watch the game, and I watched the game, and there were moments where, him flushed out of the pocket. There were some protection concerns at times, which weren't expected by me, but Cade McNamara, there were times where he was flushed out of the pocket, and he didn't force it. He either threw it away, or he found receivers often throwing off his tippy toes or throwing on the run, and did well. I thought that Cade's pocket presence actually improved from last year, his pocket awareness, mind you. Michigan made up for some of their inefficiency on third down, though, by going 2 of 2 on fourth down, which Michigan, a team that loves to run the football, if it's third and short and they run and they don't get it, they're going to run it again, more likely than not, on fourth and short and convert it. Colorado State on third down was 2 of 11, and they were 1 of 4 on fourth down. So Michigan's defense performed, in my opinion, it performed better than I thought it would, honestly. They had, I think, 7 or 8 sacks, which again, it's Colorado State, but still 7 or 8 sacks is impressive. Imagine how many they're going to rack up against Hawaii, UConn, maybe even Maryland. I'll have to see how Maryland played today. Last time I checked, they were up 17-7 on Buffalo. I want to see how that ended at 31-10. I'll watch them. So Michigan, the defense is vicious. They like to, I think they're more systematic, more strategic, and they have to be because they don't have Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo. The defense is vicious. The offense needs to improve in the red zone. Too many field goals for my liking. They had, 3 of them, which means that at the end of the day, for Michigan, if all those 3 field goals were turned into touchdowns, the final score would have been 63-7. So my score, my prediction for this game, I thought Michigan's offense was going to do much better. I thought the defense would hold Colorado State and limit them. I did not think that they would, that they would harass them in the way they did. But Michigan, what can I say? They won. They won by more than 40 points. They covered the spread. It was a good game for Michigan football, and Colorado State is a bad team. So this is not a test for Michigan. We're not going to know the true state of Michigan football until at earliest the Maryland game, and I would say at latest the Iowa game. The Iowa game is going to be a huge test. They struggled to beat South Dakota State today. They won 7-3. Those 7 points were not a touchdown by Iowa, though. It was a field goal and 2 safeties. It's the most Iowa way to get 7 points. But that defense is vicious, and combined with this offense in its red zone and third down struggles, it looks like Iowa has a real chance to shut down this Michigan offense. But again, it's game 1. The run game was good overall, 5.9 yards per carry, 7.4 yards per pass. So the pass game, again, not being as favorable as the run game, which was very similar to last year. Overall, my final point for this analysis would be that this year's Michigan team looks more similar to last year's team than I would have thought. The offense and the defense being both more similar to 2021's unit than I expected. And I expected the offense to perform better than this and the defense perform worse than this. But Michigan still looks like a unanimous, or certainly, they look like a certain top 10 team. And only time will tell if that's true or not. But by this game alone, which isn't, there's not a whole lot of weight to it, but they still looked like a good football team. Other top 10 teams like Texas A&M, for example, are struggling against Sam Houston State. So yeah, the ramifications of this game are just like some afterthoughts, I guess, might be a better term for this. Michigan enters their matchup versus Hawaii with an intense QB competition. That competition is almost biased toward J.J. McCarthy. And we'll talk about this for a few minutes. So Cade got to start this game, went 9 of 18, 136 yards, 7.6 yards per pass, and a touchdown. There were some drops by receivers. There were also some bad decisions by Cade, but overall, again, he did his job. He absolutely did his job. Here's the problem. Here is the problem that I have. It's not the problem with saying J.J. McCarthy is better. J.J. McCarthy essentially proved today he's the better athlete. Rushing for 50 yards on 3 carries, 16.7 yards per carry, and a touchdown. One of which it was the 20-yard touchdown run, going 4 of 4 for 30 yards and 7.5 yards per pass. J.J. McCarthy is obviously the better athlete. The question is he as mentally tough as Cade? Is he as good of a leader as Cade? And when you factor the athleticism, the football IQ, the leadership, mental toughness, when you factor all these things and plug them into an equation, which there's going to be no perfect equation to plug them into, but it's the closest we can get. You plug them into an equation and whoever just overall their raw score is better, well, that's in theory who you would start. It's not that simple. I wish it was, but that's what it is. J.J. McCarthy totally outdoes Cade in athletic ability. There is absolutely no doubt in that. The issue is the fans seemingly forget that leadership and mental toughness and football IQ exist. And we don't know yet, and I don't think we will know if JJ has those as fans. The staff probably already knows. As fans, as outsiders, and even as insiders, we won't know until, at earliest, the Maryland game, more likely than not the Iowa game, if JJ is at Cade's level in those areas. Because Cade has shown before that he has high football IQ, that he has his best quality is his amazing leadership, and he's mentally tough, making the game-winning play against Penn State, not letting Ohio State get in his head after making that one interception against them, for example, and there are countless more. And the reason I say it's almost biased toward J.J. McCarthy is you read the article from ESPN about this game. Michigan 51, Colorado State 7. McNamara unhappy after number 8 Michigan beats Colorado State 51-7. Michigan quarterback Cade McNamara had his first opportunity to share thoughts publicly on sharing starting quarterback duties with J.J. McCarthy early this season, and then it talked about how McNamara had a lackluster performance that was made mute by a dominant defense as the 8th-ranked Wolverines routed Colorado State. And yeah, his performance, no, it wasn't amazing. 9 of 18, 136 yards, a touchdown, and the deep pass, it was a screen by Roman Wilson that was a busted play defensively by Colorado State. Nonetheless, though, Cade has had games like this last year, and he was still a pretty good QB, finished top 30 in ESPN QBR. So all I'm saying here is it's one game. People are already making judgments about how terrible he is, and I, as a Michigan fan, do not like that. He's a captain. Yes, he made some mistakes, but all those failures on third down weren't his fault. Sometimes the offensive line didn't hold up its job and allowed him to get sacked. Other times, like Ronnie Bell, for example, dropped a pass by Cade McNamara. Other times there were drops. Other times it was his fault, and then other times the running back didn't find the right hole. It's game one. It's game one, and we'll see how J.J. McCarthy does against Hawaii. I guarantee you statistically he'll look far superior to Cade because the superior athletic ability and also the fact that Hawaii is a much worse team than Colorado State. They also have a much inferior coach to Colorado State's Jay Norvell and Timmy Chang, who played quarterback for the Rainbow Warriors. So I hope the competition is fair. I think it is in the minds of the staff. I would favor J.J. McCarthy myself, just looking at everything, but I don't like how quick Michigan fans especially are to turn on Cade. I'm not a fan of that. Point number 2. The Michigan defense performed better than expected, while the offense seemed to lag behind at times. The offense needs to get better in the red zone if they want to win big. This offense right here, and we'll see how Ohio State's defense is because, of course, the biggest game of the year is going to be in Columbus this November. So that's what I mean by win big. But also if Michigan wants to enter Columbus with a chance to go to Indy, you got to win all the other games too. The offense has to get better. Has to get better in the red zone. The offensive line was overall good, but there were times where they allowed a sack, other times where the interior of the offensive line got penetrated, which to me, screams concern, even if it's a one-off thing because of how good and talented and how high I view that interior O-line. It's one game. Michigan again dominated this, but we're looking at the ramifications. It's one game against a bad opponent, so we got to talk about both the positives and the negatives. The offense underperformed, in my opinion. They have to get better in the red zone if they want to win big. They just have to, going 3 of 10 on third down and kicking 3 field goals in the first half. That's not a good performance. The Wolverines know they can do better, and they can do better, and we'll just have to see if they will do better. The defense, on the other hand, not all I've heard, but the defense, what can I say? Jim Harbaugh, every year, except for 2020, the defense reloads. It just does, and it's a matter of whether the defense is good, great, or elite. It's rarely, actually, outside of 2020, it's never been worse than that. Never. So the defense, I think, and again, game one, and I mention this a lot because it's true and it needs to be reiterated and pounded into everyone's skulls, including my own. The defense looked fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Mike Sanderstill looked good. Junior Colson looked good. Mozzie Smith and Mike Morris looked good. It was fantastic. Rod Moore had an interception that was returned for 37 yards. DJ Turner again with that scoop and score on the fumble recovery. It was the defense did its job, honestly. Millen was 16 of 20 for 137 yards, a TD, and a pick. What that story doesn't tell you is how many times he was sacked or had to scramble for his life because the offensive line for Colorado State was like a wet paper mache wall, and Michigan's defensive line, or front seven, was like an M1 Abrams tank running through that paper mache wall. The defense impressed me. The fire behind them, the excitement, the hype, the outward aggression with the hits, the amazing tackling. It was a great performance by the defense. And the offense had its moments of greatness too. Roman Wilson, again, he made that play. It was a screen pass. He saw an opportunity, and he made that long touchdown reception. Absolutely made it. And Blake Corum had several series of long runs. Donovan Edwards impressed me on the ground. Corum had 13 carries for 76 yards, 5.8 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Donovan Edwards had 12 carries. So Corum and Edwards were getting 50-50 split. Edwards with 12 carries, 64 yards, 5.3 yards per carry, and a touchdown. So Corum and Edwards, 1-2 punch, more talented than last year's duo of Haskins and Corum, but again, Haskins with that guaranteed short yard, you hit him at the line of scrimmage and, he fell forward for an extra 2 yards. I could tell that Michigan missed that today at times, where whether it was Corum or Edwards, you'd get to the line and they would just be stopped instead of falling forward for 2 yards. So Hassan Haskins is missed dearly. This running back room, though, is still amazing. On the ground, the Wolverines averaged 6 yards per carry, basically, with 234 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. The Wolverines certainly have the potential to win the Big Ten. This game showed that they have the potential. And again, game 1, but when you win 51-7 in that fashion, and by in that fashion, I mean they won by more than 40 points and they made several mistakes, they have the potential to do it. Their defense, absolutely has near elite potential. Their offense has near elite potential. So this team has the chance to once again be the number 1 team in the Big Ten. However, we won't know the truth behind this team for a few more weeks until Big Ten play begins and until this team travels to face Iowa, where again, Michigan's offensive struggles today and the fact that Iowa's defense quite literally won them this game by scoring them 4 points to help them win by 4 points. That's going to be an interesting matchup right there. Michigan's offense against Iowa's defense. That is something that I am going to be looking at and watching all day when my Wolverines travel to Kinnick Stadium. So Michigan looked like a top 10 team today. They look like a team that can certainly contend for the Big Ten. I'm excited to see how they play against Michigan State, Ohio State, Iowa, Penn State. I'm excited for Big Ten play already, and that's still a few weeks away. And that's all I have to say for this video. If you like this reaction and analysis video, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell, and comment your thoughts on this game and on this video down in the comments section below. Thank you all for watching, and if you're listening on Spotify, make sure to follow the channel. I'll see you guys around. Bye.